Let's switch gears now, quite profoundly. Cape Town Opera's The Pearl Fishers hits the boards next month after a 2-year pandemic hiatus. It will provide a stage for a highly anticipated homecoming for homegrown opera star Levy Sekgapane. Born in Kroonstad, opera trained in Cape Town and now based in Munich in Germany. After conquering some of the opera world's top competitions, he has arrived in the mother city and has gone straight into rehearsals. But before we chat to him, let's listen to some of his 2017 performance that saw him become only the second South African to win the world-famous Operalia.
Por una puerta del alma va saliendo la imagen muerta. Por otra puerta llama la imagen que podría forarme el alma. Se me entra por los ojos y ven que sueño, que cariño de mi alma, recién nacido, la llama extingue.
Now, if that doesn't give you goosebumps on a Sunday morning, I don't know what will. That's Levy Sekgapane, an opera singer. Seems like a simplistic way of putting it. And he joins us virtually from Cape Town. Levy, thank you so much for your time. What goes through your mind when you watch 2017 Levy conquering the world at the Operalia, which really is like a World Cup of opera, isn't it? What goes through your mind now, 6 years on, and you're about to perform in one of the lead roles of a famous Bizet opera piece in a city that was home for you for a very important part of your life?
That's very true. That's correct. Wow, it's always incredible because, you know, that was the moment when my career really started, you know, after winning the Operalia. And since then I've been everywhere. I've been all over the world. I've experienced some really incredible moments in my career, and you know, it's just like a roller coaster. Once you hop on it, it never stops and it keeps on going, and big moments keep coming into your life. And I actually haven't had the chance to look back and reflect on it really. It's
let's do some reflection now. You were born in Kroonstad. When were you first exposed to opera and decided that this is what you wanted to do for the rest of your life?
I was actually pretty young. I was about 16. I was a teenager, obviously, and between 14 and 16, I was already singing in choirs, mostly at church or in like community choirs in Kroonstad. That's big there, you know, in the Free State. Choir competitions are huge. So I was actually exposed to this classical music pretty early in my life, and obviously one of my brothers is also a musician who actually had a choir of his own, and I also sang in that choir. But you know, opera is something that I came to much later in my life, because I also played football. I played soccer. And when I actually went to university, I became a pianist too. So it was like a long route to, you know, to becoming an opera singer. And I was always scared of being an opera singer, because I thought, I mean, how can someone sing in a language that they don't speak? How can you memorize all that music? How can you sing more than 3 hours on stage? You know, you just die at the end. It's just something that I couldn't do. How can you act and sing at the same time? You know, it's complicated if you look at it. And for a young guy who actually wanted to be an opera singer, I was just scared, and I thought to myself, no way, I'm not gonna do it. And I think in my 4th year, because my first degree was actually in piano, in singing, but I was not really an opera singer. I became an opera singer in my postgraduate at UCT. That was the moment when I actually then went for it. And I thought, you know, as a musician, I think I'm ready. I think emotionally I'm ready. I think I have now the experience I had been already singing chorus parts in some of the productions that UCT put on. So yeah, so slowly I fell in love with this opera thing, and now it's just, yeah, there we go. It's
Now,
just working.
it's an art form, but it's also physically strenuous. You spoke about how you played football as a youngster as well, and you questioned how people could do this for 3 hours. You're also, I believe, a big tennis fan. You play tennis quite often as well. And then if you look at these competitions, and I've seen some of them, you know, online, it's almost like a sports event, the way you need to physically prepare yourself, because you only got one shot at it. You've only got one shot at perhaps
That's right.
breaking the big time and the opportunities that come with winning the title. How do you prepare for that kind of strenuous side of what really is a beautiful artistic craft?
I'll tell you something right now. Now that you've mentioned tennis, it's actually exactly like tennis, because technically it is. How? We have to sing technically correct. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you don't have a chance on stage. Which means, you know, if you watch them on the court, tennis players, they have nerves. They have all these, like, thousands of people watching them. We do too. They've got to keep the composure. You've got to keep the control in order for everything to work and to go well. Sometimes it doesn't, you know. Sometimes you could have a bad night. Sometimes you don't sleep well. You could crack, the voice could crack, or sometimes you are physically tired and you cannot do it. So you need to be fit physically. We run around on stage. We jump around on stage. We get into fighting scenes. We get into dancing sometimes. So just to tell you a short story, a few weeks ago I sang in Paris. I jumped in a very, very difficult and stressful week. I had to do Bellini's I Puritani, which is a Mount Everest for us in opera, because it's the role of the tenor is, you know, the tenor is the protagonist, and he carries this load through all the performance. You sing 3 hours, and at the end of the opera, you have to sing this big aria where Bellini actually wrote a letter that he wants that everybody, the whole cast in this opera, to die physically and vocally, and you do die at the end. And I had to learn the entire opera in 2 days to sing it in Paris. And it was so stressful because I didn't know it. And I arrived in Paris. The conductor told me, "Listen, how much do you know?" I said, "I don't know anything." And he said to me, "Okay, let's study together 4 hours tomorrow, and then we will see the orchestra." And then we did. And then we did the performance on Saturday with the critics in Paris. You know, the critics in Paris, the opera critics in Paris are very difficult people. And like, for instance, Bizet's Pearl Fishers, when it was premiered, many those, you know, in that time when he was writing it, it was actually criticized badly by the critics, and the people didn't like it. And after that, it sort of fell out of the repertoire. So the same thing too, you know, the opera critics in Paris are really difficult, and they were all sitting in the front row, and I was really shaking. But you know, I came out because I have a big number, which is my first entrance aria called Ate o Cara. Beautiful aria. Probably many people know it. It's a very famous aria for the tenor. You have to be so composed to sing that aria. Technically, you have to be sure of yourself. You have to stand there knowing that you are the king of this role, you know. And I nailed the aria, and there was a huge ovation after that. And in the intermission, the conductor comes to my room and he says, "Did you hear that? Did you hear that? It was incredible. It's like tennis. It's like tennis."
But
yeah.
yeah, the stages of Paris, and yet I think perhaps that many years ago, I first heard of a young Pretiende. I was sitting at the Baxter Theatre at a student showcase. My sister was studying violin at the time there, and I lived at an apartment across the road, and on the list was somebody called Pretiende who was about to perform. And I swear, I will never forget the first time I heard her when she opened her mouth, and the hair on the back of my neck stood up. And yeah, my colleague spoke to Pretiende just a week or so ago, and she's preparing to perform at King Charles's coronation. She's going to be seen by billions of people. And yet Pretty Yende is just leading a pack of young South African opera stars that are really taking the world by storm. I mean, you're one of them, obviously. Lutando Xave, I think of Pumeza Machikiza.
Yes,
do you think that you're at a stage now that South African opera is really punching above its weight, to use another sporting term as part of our conversation,
that's right.
When in these hallowed walls of European opera, because those are still the capitals of it, and including places in Australia and South America as well, when they hear, oh, you're an opera singer from South Africa, are we at a stage now that people don't just say, oh, what do you know about that? Oh, from South Africa, you've been really creating some great stars. Has that kind of success of yourself and those around you, has it opened, do you think it's opening doors for more and more South African opera and music talent?
Yes, definitely. Because also, if you look at it, before us, there was also great superstars that came out of South Africa, like, for instance, the late Johan Botha, the late Dion van der Walt, maybe could say, you know, Kobe van Rensburg, Clint van der Lind, you know, I can't remember his name, but all these guys, these are superstars. Some of them are, I mean, had huge careers in Europe, and they sort of put opera on the market. And then we are another generation that also has continued. And I can gladly tell you that the future of opera in South Africa is in good hands, and it's just incredible, because now you are right. Whenever there's a new sensation coming out of the country, everybody's like, oh my God, South Africa, what is going on? My colleagues keep on asking me, what do you guys eat there? Why? I mean, why do you, because South Africa, at some point, it really became the factory for great voices. I tell you the truth. Like, every year we hear amazing voices at Belvedere, at Operalia, at competitions. You know, we see some new sensations, and my friends are asking me, like, why? What do you eat? What are you drinking? And you know, it's beautiful to see that already, that internationally we are recognized. So it's something really beautiful to hear. So
I believe Operalia
right.
is set to be performed in South Africa later this year, so that's going to be super exciting. We've run out of time, but very quickly, you're performing in the Pearl Fishers. From what I've read, is supposed to be one of those dream roles for a tenor of your stature, and to be able to do it in your own country must be something special. What are you hoping people will experience when they come and see this, when it hits the boards?
Just apart from it being my dream opera or dream role, the music is incredible. It's very romantic and French. Beautiful lines. The cast is amazing. Britney singing. We have also Conroy Scott singing. So this the trio is very, very strong. The duets between me and Britney, between Leila and Adira, are incredible duets with high notes. We're always singing at the top of our voices, so people can enjoy this great singing, great acting. It's a semi-staged opera, beautiful. It's there'll be also some of the behind in the background. There'll be some beautiful artwork from a very, very famous South African artist. And yeah, that's going to be really, really incredible. We're looking forward to that.
I'm sure, and I'm sure opera fans in Cape Town are in for a treat. We unfortunately have to leave it there. Thank you for your time. What a great conversation. Levy Sekgapane, world-renowned now tenor, opera star, really waving South Africa's flag across the top opera stages of the world and performing in the Pearl Fishers coming soon in Cape Town. They're deep into rehearsals now. Let's